Hello, everyone. I hope you've all been great. I'm really excited to be here today with a new episode of our guest special series of Youth Talk MENA. Today, we're here with Mr. Swethal Kumar, CEO and Managing Partner at StartupScale360 and co-founder of the CrossRoads. Mr. Kumar is an alumnus of the London Business School and an Indian chartered accountant. He lived in the United Arab Emirates for nearly 2 decades and spent major parts of his career with the Mubadala Investment, one of the largest sovereign funds in the world. He's very active in the MENA region, Georgia, and the Indian ecosystem to foster innovation and creativity among young entrepreneurs. So it's truly an honor to have you here, Mr. Kumar. We are looking forward to this discussion. And also thank you to everyone that joined us and will be joining us later as well. So I just want to say that you can feel free to leave your comments or questions in the chat box so that we may get to them in the end. So just before we start, would you have anything that you'd like to say?
First of all, Umaima, thanks for having me here. And I'm really delighted to share my experience to young students and young entrepreneurs. I think the theme of the whole let's say session is around young entrepreneurs and the student entrepreneurs. So I think I'm really excited to kind of see how I can, my experience will help sort of foster their innovations or help them actually to kind of start their entrepreneurial ventures. So yeah, that I'm looking forward to.
And we're really excited as well to have you here and talk further. So I'm going to start off with my first question, and it is, what are your views on young entrepreneurs? And do you agree or disagree that there is still a gap when it comes to youth-led businesses that have high potential growth entering the market, and why?
It's a great question, Umaima. Actually, if you look at the global populations, over 3 billion are, or let's say more than half of the world populations are under the age of 25. And if you just look at the sort of age bracket between 15 and 24 years, it contributes like nearly 16% of global populations. And almost 90% of all young people actually live in developing country. And we are also in Middle East, we are blessed with a lot of young talents. So in my view, young people or young talents are the most valuable national assets. They are the backbone of the society. So it's very important that there should be like a government level initiatives or university level programs to sort of investing in them brings tremendous, so that they can bring tremendous social and economic benefits. Now the question always there's a big question that how do we harness the innovative spirit of young people? I know there's something has to be done. Has to be inculcated at a very early level. Now, in my view, I think pretty much everyone has some sort of an entrepreneurial talent at early stage. Some of them got innate talent, some of are required to be developed. So it's very important that creating those sort of a entrepreneurial culture at a very early level, so that you can unleash those talents. Now, look at the sort of startups which are created by the young entrepreneurs. Though they are actually creating jobs, increasing innovations, raising competitions, and also these young talents are actually now responding to changing economic opportunity and trends. So I think that's why, in my view, this has to be created at a very early stage. We need to create more and more young entrepreneurs. To your other questions where you ask about, like I think you mentioned about if I agree or disagree about the gaps which when it's the youth-led businesses. I think this is it's a challenge actually. If you look at many youths, they maybe it could be also parents pressures, or it's a more of a peer pressure that everybody, once they graduate, they all wants to pursue career. So it's many of these guys or young talents are very reluctant in pursuing career in entrepreneurship. Now that may be because of the lot of obstacles which young people encounter when setting up a business. It prevents them to sort of pursue their entrepreneurial ventures, or sort of create sort of a development in those community, due to the lack of support structures, due to the lack of such sort of a let's say good government programs to support entrepreneurial development, or maybe due to the lack of business fundings or startup capital. As you know that in some places it's very high cost in setting up a company. There's no clarity in terms of the registration, or also don't have proper startup ecosystem where you can tap the mentors or thought leaders or connect with some good accelerator or incubator. Those are the challenge when it comes to the youth-led business, when it is when they're entering into this the market. I think it is important that if you are let's say pursuing a venture-led project, I think you need to be in the right startup ecosystem. I mean, if you are, let's say, we think capital is most important things, and if you are supported by family and you have enough capital and backed by family member, then it's a different story. But as you enter into the startup ecosystem where you dilute your equity significantly, depend on a lot of the external funding from friends and family, angel investors, or VC funds. I think it's requires that you need to be in the ecosystem where you are well connected with the mentors or the government regulators. In fact, academia also play a bigger role, and also have access to the capital.
Right. And I think you mentioned a lot of good points there. You talked about peer pressure, which is really true, actually. And how we choose careers and how we kind of have this mindset where we think about a career that we have in mind, and then we forget about what we actually want to do, and then that changes later on. And then you talked about investing at an early stage and some of the challenges that you see. And I think you're right, because that's kind of what we're trying to do at Youth Wave as well. We're trying to break down these challenges and see how we can overcome them. And since we're youth-led, we can, we're able to understand them ourselves more. So yeah, so I'd just like to ask, are there certain expectations that young entrepreneurs are not ready to meet?
So I think in my view, there is no set in stone rule for an entrepreneur, or there's expectation that for young entrepreneur which they can't meet. I think once you start your entrepreneur journey, I think certain things needs to be kept in mind, that you need to have a good partner or team. You need to raise capital on time, pivot your business model if needed, find a good mentor, work on your soft skills, be a good listener. I think it's very important, and be humble, embrace the challenge, and
Yeah,
especially on your strengths.
definitely. Can I get your perspective on whether the youth, or the next wave of entrepreneurs, as I'd like to call it, do you think that they need to have a change of mindset or develop a different behavior to achieve higher chances of success in their entrepreneurship journey? And if so, what do you see should change?
I think it's a very good question, Omema, because unfortunately, I've come across many youths who are very disengaged. They don't have any sustainable goal. I think one has to decide if they want to excel in corporate ladder or pursue a passion of entrepreneurial journey. So when it comes to the entrepreneurship, I think it's always a pull and push sort of a factors that creates an entry to an entrepreneurship. I mean, typically in the pull factors, we see the young entrepreneurs or young generations are very optimistic. They are very independent. They're personally motivated, and also they want to be recognized in their region globally. Or has created their own personal development goal plan, sort of. But these all things drives to become an entrepreneur. Whereas on the contrary, when you look at the push factors, which is born out of necessities, where people or younger generations are encounter job insecurity or unemployment, or there's a discontentment or disagreements with the employers. In that case, they this sort of a necessity sort of think force them to think on to kind of trying something differently. But I
Yeah.
think in their case, I think mindset change is very important, because when you are starting your entrepreneurial journey, you need to understand few things, that failure is something you have to embrace. I mean, you will see failure as a sort of a maybe sort of a necessary steps toward your success. So don't be ashamed of your setback. Especially be tenacious about working towards your dream. Be more creative. I think this sort of entrepreneurial journey is required you to be more creative so that you can look for always novel ideas and innovations. The most important is get away from your comfort zone. I mean, if you are in a
Yes.
comfort zone, I think it will be very difficult to kind of pursue this sort of a career, in entrepreneurship. And like I keep saying that be humble, but at the same time, have a positive attitude, because I think if you look at the mindset of the leaders, basically sets the tone for the rest of the company and influences your corporate cultures. So the negative thoughts, it's basically undermine your forward motions and progress of the company. So it has to ensure that you have a really good mindset and attitude. So there's some sort of a changes definitely required, but in my view, these are very important things. A, because you are young, and B, you are entering into a space where you'll be competing with the more matured companies and all. But I've seen amazing startups, which is like on young talent led startups have really disrupted the various industry. I mean, we know most of the unicorns here globally. It's all started by young generations, and now pretty much they are the youngest billionaires also. So I think it's all start with a good mindset.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, you're right. I mean, you've mentioned a lot of important things. One, that you said about, having the positive attitude when you want to become that young entrepreneur and you're starting a company. Also that you've mentioned, I think, about being strong in your thoughts and kind of having that positive side instead of looking at the negative. And I think that's really important for us to think, because obviously failure is going to happen anyway. And if you're not going to accept that you're a failure, then how else will you succeed? So that's really important to know. So, what is your approach on creating social impact and innovation to redesign the future that are youth led? I know this is quite a huge area to discuss, and we have to go deeper. But for now, can we just get your general view?
Yeah, Umema, this is very deeper subject, impact investing, social impact, and all this. But it's a very interesting topic, and it's been emerging of late, in different geography. I think, especially we live in a world of full of uncertainties, right? So I
Mhm.
think it's very important to look at those creativity and ability of spirit of our youth towards creating a more sustainable socio-economics kind of a environment, right? So I spoke about the impact investing. Like, let me introduce you the concept of impact investing for the benefit of your audience, which are young students and young entrepreneur. Actually, it's a general investment strategy basically that seeks to generate financial returns while also creating a positive social or positive social or environmental impact. Now, I mean, if you look at simply the 17 UN SDGs goal,
Mhm.
sustainable development goals, they have a target such as reducing poverty, increasing gender equality, providing access to clean and affordable energy, and creating more sustainable cities. Simultaneously, a lot of impact investors are actually looking to identify and invest in entrepreneurs tackling these some similar targets. So we can see
Right.
there's a lot of these defined areas. New innovations are happening, and investors are also very changing their fund thesis. It's no more like a philanthropical sort of investment.
Yeah.
Is becoming a serious financial return as well. Now we can see like some of the sectors which is really doing good for quite some time is healthcare, education, energy, especially on clean and renewable energy and agriculture. A lot of innovations happening, solving food security, water security, creating a clean technology, and all so and so forth.
Exactly. And just before, because I want to talk about the crossroads as well in a bit, but just before we get to that, what would your best advice be for young entrepreneurs?
I think I know like a lot of students are also here, so that's why I'll start from them. See, my advice is that don't just study to seek jobs, but
Yeah.
to create jobs. You can be entrepreneur, you can create a jobs, you can add a huge values to your economy of your country, to the regions, to the global, right? So generally for a young entrepreneur, my advice is that most important thing is not to give up and always learn new things every day.
I think that's really a wonderful piece of advice and probably one of the best ones that we've heard on the series. So I'm going to go over now to the CrossRoads, which I'm very excited to talk about with you. So you made the statement. You said that in fact 97% of the startups in the ecosystem fail, and that your aim is to lower this number. The most effective way of doing this is to share information, experience, and to involve all this. This number is still so high at the present, and how effective will it be, or how big of a change will there be to involve all stakeholders?
So I think the idea of CrossRoads started with my friend and my actually Nicholas, who was my even classmate at London Business School. So when I started StartupScale360 in Middle East, we've been looking at a lot of new ideas here, and also looking at international startups which we can bring it over to this part of the world. And Nicholas also evaluated a lot of this deal, and he said that, you know what, I see there's a lot of opportunity in his region, which is Caucasus region. Plus, looking at the kind of proximity to Middle East, we can create a good bridge. And also, Caucasus region is centrally located between Central Asia, Eastern Europe, Baltic region as well, and Middle East, like I said. So you can create a 360-degree impact. Now, given that my experience also with Hub71 and I was in Mubadala, I think we clearly understand what should be the right ecosystem. So it's very important to kind of involve all the stakeholders, and it starts with actually government, because it has to be top-down approach. It has to start with government, the regulator, because maybe there's a need for policy change, regulatory change for in line with the kind of the disruptions happening. And also you need to attract good accelerator who can do the good due diligence, vet the startups at a very, very early stage, ideation stage, or MVP, so that it can create a great deal for even for later investments. So that leads to sort of you need a lot of investors communities, which not necessarily not just angel investor, but you need a good seed funds or late stage funds as well in this region, because the startups go through the various life cycle. I call it as a metamorphosis process, similar to what we see in the nature. It goes through this kind of a life cycle, and you need a different types of investors category. And also, I keep telling this young entrepreneur needs to speak with lots and lots of mentors, thought leaders. So all this actually, and even academia plays a bigger role, So all these are the key stakeholders, and this is very important to turn those sort of the statistic which you give. And today, I mean, historically always been, we see 97% of the startup fails, but how can you change this figure? I mean, this requires the collaborations of all the stakeholders in this ecosystem, and that's exactly our idea of creating the CrossRoads. It's starting from Tbilisi, Georgia, but it will travel. We getting a lot of inbound interest from different countries as well. We already started speaking with Kazakhstan as well as Uzbekistan, who are also developing the ecosystem there. Plus, we got some interest from Hungary, Romania. Yesterday we were speaking someone in Abu Dhabi, and they were very excited, very senior level government or level, and the lady who we spoke with, she said we need to bring it to even Abu Dhabi. So I think there is good interest coming, and we believe that the CrossRoad can create a big impact of creating a one unified ecosystem.
That's amazing. I completely agree with you on that. I think that the more shareholders are involved, like you said, the more there is a sort of transparency, and collaboration is one of the things that I wanted to point out. And also that relationship with the startups in the ecosystem, which is once again crucial to lower that high percentage of failure. And it only makes sense to take that step or to take that initiative and hence drive the change within the ecosystem. So the CrossRoads had gained significant support from the Ministry of Economy and Georgia's Innovation Technology Agency. And in a press conference, your partner and the founder of the CrossRoads that you mentioned, Nicholas Kobakhite, had said that, and I quote in his words, "Access to information is what we have, and with top companies, technology companies, including one of the largest, impactful, and well-known SoftBank Robotic." He also added that the UN involvement was crucial, and that you work with the Center for Artificial Intelligence and Robotics, United Nations. So to sort of summarize, the Crossroads hold great competitiveness and value in terms of impact and technology, and it makes a powerful platform overall to showcase startups in the region as well as worldwide. And I've come to know that the Crossroads is not just to showcase startups, but to also allow for a space of high level learning. And I have two questions for you on all of that. So the first one is, given the tremendous amount of support and that there is a strong, solid foundation to the Crossroads, how big of a transformation can we expect in the ecosystem?
So, idea is the crossroad is to kind of start with the event, which is happening on 1st to 3rd September. The event is why it's important because you can get international attentions. You may name some of the large and the UN bodies. These are just few examples who actually going to collaborate with us. But we have a great speakers, Irakli, who's actually head of AI and robotic in UN. We have a partnership with SoftBank Robotic. Also, we have a speakers from BP Ventures. We have collaborated with Brink Accelerator and Founder Institute, which we announced in last week roadshow. And we have few in line. We have Microsoft for Startups, and we have few other funds, large impact from India. Even from India, we also bringing central governments. Initiatives called Startup India or Invest India. So it's a central government programs. They are participating in our event to kind of share their experience in building a startup ecosystem in India, which is third largest ecosystem. So there's a lot of learnings. There will be keynote speakers. There will be a lot of panel discussions. There are upscaling workshops. We bring a lot of expertise from different geography. It's a hybrid event. So we are expecting a lot of people to fly down to Tbilisi, but at the same time, because current conditions situation is that there are some travel restrictions and regulations are still a challenge for some of the countries. So who cannot, if they cannot fly, they can actually connect virtually. So we have people connecting from the US, from South America as well, Middle East. We have good sort of really good interest from Middle East, which is really, which I wasn't surprised because, Tbilisi become a lot of destinations for tourism for quite some time, ever since there's a government level have what sort of a collaboration happened in allowing our residents of this country to travel. So passport is honestly you don't need a visa. So it's already opened that sort of sectors for these regions, and there's a lot of infrastructure and tourism level of investment also happening from Middle East. So from that perspective, we were not surprised that we would able to attract in these other players from the startup ecosystem, which is also sort of a testimony that they believe in what we are doing. Because if you look at the Middle East startup ecosystem, which is young as well as fledgling, I think that region is also pretty much has a similar dynamic. Everyone is very trying to do from scratch, so it's a lot of sort of a similar comparison we can draw upon. The only thing here is that there's a lot of funds, and hence it's collaborating with Middle East help us to kind of create a good bridge between Caucasus regions and Middle East. So to answer your question also in terms of the learnings and what, let's say, startup would generally expect from that sort of events, they will have ability to showcase their products or solutions. They can participate in the pitching competitions, which we have, which is already live, and last date of application is 25th of July. You can go to the website, the crossroads.global, and startups can apply. It's mainly meant for pre-seed and seed stage of startups. And then for the startup, we also have created an investors launch where they can have a possibility to connect with the investors or network with investors, share your ideas or pitch their idea to them. And then the experts will be, like I said, there's a series of discussion going to happen. There's a lot of learnings from this this event. And we have well curated theme which we have designed where it cover pretty much most of the major sectors, and the sector which is more relevant for current sort of themes and investments. So those experts, how we are trying to kind of structure this panel discussion is that we'll have someone from the fund, someone from the leading accelerators or government or regulations talking about specific topics, or even inviting some of the really good startup founder CEOs of the successful startup also to be part of that. So these sort of a combinations we are looking. In fact, we have a university led some programs as well. We have collaborated with Caucasia universities there. We actually announcing few our initiative as well, like we will be launching women in tech chapter. There will be first in kind of sort of a girls CrossRoads Girls Academy. So there's a various program which we'll be announcing. Some also fund who may be launching first time. So those announcement will happen.
Yeah, that's really wonderful. And why do you think it's important, or why is it important that you have that open space for learning? And to what extent should startups generally be prepared for a showcase? And since you've mentioned that you have various programs and you're working with universities as well, how do you see the crossroads aligned with the youth?
I think the crossroad is meant for startup and also for young entrepreneurs, because especially the way why we started from that region, because the region is very very young. If you look at the current, they are mostly pre-seed seeds, and that's also for the neighboring region also same sort of a story. So it requires a lot of learnings, mentorships, a lot of hand holdings. At the same time, even at the policy levels, government levels, certain changes required. Of course, some of the countries are doing really good. Some needs to catch up. So even at that levels, we want to kind of connect them to the more mature ecosystem where they can learn from their let's say best practices, good governance, good frameworks, and all. So it's yes, startup in one side will learn a lot, but at the same time we are also looking that kind of a creating a more sort of a lesson learned for various other stakeholders. For example, there's a need for more and more accelerators, and there's a need for more and more incubators as well. So this give a more opportunity for even international players to kind of look at that region. So it is untapped and underserved. It has not been seen for many years. In fact, if you look at the global funds, also many of them do not have even mandate to invest in that region. So it is pretty much. You can say that's ignored. So we want to give that an opportunity. So how everything is, if you look at the trickle down to startups, if there's no startup, no ecosystem, so how it will eventually help and benefit startups to scale up the business. At the same time, provide a lot of learning opportunity for young entrepreneurs, connect through the CrossRoads platform to the other startups in our network or the global network through our partners. So these are the opportunities which CrossRoads will give, and we are very much aligned with our youth initiatives as well. Basically, what I was like summarizing that the CrossRoad initiative is aligned with the youth, and I was saying that like there are a lot of learning opportunity. It's not just about the startup; it's all about the other stakeholders who needs to catch up with other ecosystems as well. So it's a learning for everyone. There's a lot of takeaways, and post event, this is what our objective is, to learn with governments and as well as other players. And like I was saying before we cut off, that like everything is basically trickle down to startups, and what we do, everything in this ecosystem is to scale up their business, support the startup. If there's no startup, there's no ecosystem, right? So that is how we see that. And we believe that the CrossRoad bring huge values to the startups in that region, as well as provide an opportunity for international startups to look at expanding to that region.
Right. And I personally believe that opportunities like the CrossRoads are not something that come up every day. And with already the initiative to involve the youth in such a big event is remarkable. And I think with taking these steps, there will definitely be a change in how the youth kind of plays their role in the ecosystem, and also feel more empowered. And just before we close off, I'd like to go through quickly with maybe some of the questions if there are. Okay.
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to thank you for this amazing advices, and you really inspire youth like me and Umayma and a lot of the audience. So thank you for being today with us. One of my first questions is that I think one of the hardest decisions youth have to make is what career path to pursue. So for you, what was the milestone that made it clear for you that this is who you want to become and this is what you're going to devote all of your heart into?
I think it's a really good question because for me, it took almost 2 decades to decide that I want to start my own entrepreneur journey, and I think it's all happens with due to, like I said, it's sometimes uh, due to the family pressures or peer pressures, and when I started my career, I did my chartered accountancy from India, and I wanted to kind of sort of excel to my corporate ladder to become a top CFO and all those sort of things I had in mind, and that's what I was chasing for the dream. But over the period, I realized that, like, with almost 20 plus years of experience, I think I've done enough, and I have to give back. And I see the kind of idea innovations which I come across day-to-day basis. I believe this young talent need lots and lots of support. By the way, I started my own startups 4 5 years ago, 2016. I think I launched my startup, and it was more of impacts in sustainability impact investment side. I was looking to see how through the app I can connect senior citizens or people or determinate people or people with disability with connect with them with the volunteers, because they all live in isolations, and some of the case there's cases of depressions. They need to step out, they need to speak with someone, they want to go to, let's say, to restaurants, maybe with someone to eat dinner, or they want to watch a movie with someone. So that the idea was to see that how I can connect them with the young talent, young generations, and I know that there are amazing young generations who do already volunteer these things, but there's more of like they come across these people through their network or within their community or through their NGOs and all. So my idea was to do this at a global scale, and that's how I started, and I launched in India. uh, but I realized that I think it wasn't really easy because there's a lot of you need to factors of securities, and and at that time I was working also. I had to travel almost every month to ensure that things working well in terms of the security, in terms of the background check and various things. It wasn't easy for me to also two things in parallel, right? And I was in a situation when I couldn't even leave the job, and I decided to basically leave my own entrepreneurial venture, because I thought that I don't think I can justify this initiative by not really looking at the certain nitty-gritty of the security of these people, and also the kind of upgrading the technology in such that, like, you can able to do the good screening and all, and also connect this app with the cyber cell. So there's a lot of work otherwise needed to be done. So the long story short, you can say that the idea got killed, and I felt sad because it was really embraced by a lot of people globally, and they love this idea, and they said this is much needed, because most of this senior citizens and the people with disability are not really disconnected. They're living in silos. So some of their children are actually working in different countries, and they need to really step out and speak with someone. So there's a lot of demand for that. But at the same time, I had my own constraint and I couldn't pursue. But then I realized that I think maybe what I can do, that I can always support new ideas and new young generations who. So that's something I can do. That that's where I decided to not to go with my own startups, whereas I said no, I will basically support all the young talents and the young generation who can solve any such kind of problem, not necessarily this any pain points. Because most of the, if you look at the ideas or sort of innovative creations all happen because of the pain point we come across. It could be your point, it could be your society's pain point or national pain point. That's what we want to address, right? And And that's where then you get sort of a novel and innovation idea to solve this problem.
Actually, Mr. Kumar, your answer is transformational when it comes to the stereotype that youth need to sort out their lives after they graduate high school or college. So your answer actually will inspire a lot of youth listening to us now or later after it goes down on YouTube or Spotify. So, question number two. In your entrepreneurial journey, what was the main obstacle you faced and how did you overcome it?
So my first venture, I mentioned about that I had a lot of obstacles, and I really dedicated my time. I think it's most important that you need a support of your friends and family, who needs to believe in your ideas and believe in your aspiration, which is really, really important. So you always speak with your friends and families about what you're trying to do, get supports, get connections. That is one of the ways to overcome the challenges. I know, and I saying that like we need always a mentors and thought leader, industry experts, and all. Keep talking to them. I think I did in that space very well, and I, even though I was working, I was dedicating my time, and even I was traveling every month, meeting a lot of people. So you need to have a foot on the ground, you need to have a skin in the game, so that's most important. Yeah, to overcome this kind of challenge. And that's a basically typical any entrepreneurial journey. If you're a founder, you need to kind of really go out, step out of your comfort zone. And when I started StartupScale 360, I think this by the time we started StartupScale 360 and the Crossroad, it was much easier because there were a lot of experience. I'm working with large group. I had good connections. What I did the other day when I left, the very next day, I started reaching out to all my connections, all my people in the network who I believe that will support me, and also I know that they trust me. They have a lot of confidence in me. So that's the first thing I did. So the very next day, I started really calling them and blocking my calendars. So you won't believe, like from the day when I left till now, my calendars are always full. Now it's like always 2 weeks in advance. I still try to reach to new people, talk to them, because every time I see or meet new people, I learn from that. Whether it's the young entrepreneurs or anyone in the industries, expert as well. There's always a learning. So I think this most important for me for that from StartupScale 360 perspective is to kind of reconnect with all my networks, and that helped me a lot. And things like started unfolding very easily. People say, hey, you're doing great. I think tell me what sort of support you need, and they like the idea. So I think it went on sort of a more into autopilot mode, and then we kind of pivot to the Crossroads. And the Crossroad, I mean, I won't say it's just a pivot. It's more of additions to our portfolios. This new venture, start a new company, which is itself is a with the support of the friends and family. Like I said, my classmate Nicholas, believed in the idea, and he said that let's do something in the region. In fact, now we are working on launching a mobility fund, which is a third initiative. So I think every time I believe that, like whenever I get up early in the morning, I always have something to achieve, something to pursue, and I always chase for the dream. So I'm a guy who can't sit idle for a single minute. I have to, for me, time is in essence, and that's very important for every young entrepreneur, young student, that value your time. It's if you lose, you can never get it back.
That's a really, really, really good answer. Thank you for that. Last but not least, for my third question, to cut it short, what are the secret ingredients that you think come up together to make a successful entrepreneur?
I think a lot of things I have already spoken, but to summarize that, for successful entrepreneurs, you need to have a passions. I mentioned this, that you need to come out of your comfort zone. Embrace the failure. This is common. I failed a lot, but you had to get up and walk again. I was never like ashamed of the setback. Even at the corporate level, it's not about the like a failure you see only in the entrepreneurial journey. Even at a corporate level, if you're pursuing your career in the corporate, at corporate level, you may come across that. But always learn from the mistake, learn from the failures, and move forward. And always be creative. I think it's look for always the solutions. You will see a lot of problems, but you always should be a problem solver. And positive attitude is very important. Cannot be arrogant. You leave your ego on the back burner, and have, like we talked about, the mindset change, and how a leader can set the tone. So I've seen amazing startup led by the young leader, young entrepreneurs who's now managing like 200 300 people. So I think it's all about the mindset change, and how composed they are, how the kind of the attitude they carry. It's amazing. So these are the various ingredients, I believe.
Thank you very much for these priceless advices. So again, thank you very much for having these words. And now I'll leave you with Umaima. Thank you again.
Great. I was just listening, and I think I'm so amazed now, even more now, that because you shared your story, and thank you for doing that. And thank you, Emma, for taking this conversation also to more of an emotional aspect and not just focusing on things. But it was really good. Thank you so much. So on that note, I guess we can wrap up today's discussion. Thank you so much, Mr. Kumar, for giving us your time. Your presence with us here today has truly been an honor, and you are always welcome to join us again. We'd really love that. And yeah, I guess, yeah, go ahead.
No, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me here, Umema and Amal. Great questions. Thank you for asking those questions. And yeah, I mean, happy to come back again and share my experience. I'm sure we learn a lot, and we are happy to always share our experience in terms of the next stage. Next, I'm sure that we'll be adding so many new things in the futures. Always we'll share that. Happy to share.